So Apple finally released iOS 17.1 to the entire public, and it came with some nice new features. So in this video, what I want to talk about is the top features that came with 17.1's update, and so you can kind of go in and play with those new features that Apple did just release. So without further ado, let's get right into that video. Before we do get started, I did also want to mention that Apple has released things like macOS Sonoma 10.1. They also released iPadOS 17.1, the new version of tvOS, watchOS 10.1, which should give us that new double tap feature on the Apple Watch Ultra, and the Series 9, even though I don't have those yet. But I just wanted to give you that notice. And then when it comes to the support for 17.1, it's going to work with an iPhone XR or newer, so that includes a XS, XS Max, and those phones, as well as the iPhone SE 2nd Gen and 3rd Gen. So now that we got that housekeeping out of the way, let's look at all these new features that Apple just gave us. Alright everyone, so let's get right into this video and talk about 17.1 and all of its new features. So the first thing I will do is go into my photos and share the screenshot of how big this file update is going to be, or this update. So we're at 1.5 gigs. Give yourself at least 3 gigs of open storage in order to get this installed and get it installed correctly to make sure there's no issues that come up. And then in terms of build number, what I like to do is show off exactly what we got going on from a build number perspective. So if we go into settings, go into the about, go into the version number, it is 210B80. So again, this is the public release, this isn't a beta program, but you can go on here and figure out exactly every single nuanced feature that Apple updated or every resolution they had for any bugs that were persisting throughout iOS 17 and the subsequent updates from 17.0 to 17.0.3, because we did have a couple issues that hopefully are being fixed with 17.1. So now when it comes to what is new, right? Did Apple give us some new features? Apple did give us some new features that are worth talking about, so let's jump right into the Music app first. So if we go into the Music app, you can actually see that we have a brand new splash screen, so it tells us what's new with Apple Music. Apple gave us some updates, so there's more to favorites, favorite songs, albums, and playlists, and they'll appear in your library. We have a suggestion section, so whenever you have a playlist, which I'll show you in a little bit, it'll give you suggestions on what they think you would like to listen to in this playlist, and then playlist covers as well. So if you guys have seen before, when you had a playlist, it would kind of just give you a cover of 4 different of those album covers from the music in them, but now we actually have an album cover. So I'm not going to enable notifications. I don't personally like that. So the first thing we do is in the Music app for the new favorites section. So if we go into our library, let's say we go into our playlist over here, go into the untitled playlist that I have over here. This is kind of like my running playlist, which is nice. If you go into the top right, we now have the ability to click on these 3 dots and actually favorite this entire playlist. So this entire playlist and every single song in here will be favorited, which is nice. And you also have the ability to do that from the song itself. So if I go into the song, into the album art, we can actually favorite it. So it tells you right here, add to your favorite songs, keep track of music you care about by adding it to your favorites. So I will favorite that right there, and it should go into my favorites, which is nice. And it has a nice little animation that goes with it as well. And then to continue on with that aspect, if you go back into your playlist section and you click on this little drop-down menu here, we can now filter based on favorites. So obviously the untitled playlist was set as a favorite, so now you can filter based on that. And then also, let's say if we are playing a song, we go up. If you long press on the song, you'll have the actual favorite button right there as well. And also, from the lock screen, if I go down here, tap on the song, the favorite will be able to access through the lock screen as well. So you can favorite a song now pretty much in any aspect or in any situation that you are able to. So the next new update with 17.1 has to do with airdrop and name drop and all that good stuff. So firstly, I haven't updated my watch to 10.1 quite yet, but you will be able to actually airdrop via your Apple Watch in terms of name drop. So you can bring an Apple Watch that's on 10.1, bring it close to your iPhone, and it'll have that nice animation that we've seen with 17.0. So if you're on an Apple Watch that has 17.1, you can now do that between your Apple Watch and an iPhone to exchange contact information. And then secondly, for airdrop, it's not really a visual feature that you can see, but there was a promise early on that with 17.0 that you were actually able to airdrop even though you weren't next to somebody. So yes, you have to be next to somebody to initiate the airdrop, but then that'll upload to the cloud, whether it is iCloud or anything like that, via cellular data or Wi-Fi, and then be able to then continue the airdrop even if that person leaves completely. Let's say you're on the subway and you need to share, some information or share a bunch of pictures on somebody on the subway, but they have to get out. All you have to do is initiate that airdrop, and then over time, all that stuff will eventually get to you. So that is something new that was promised with 17.0, but now it's here with 17.1. And you can see in the settings menu that you can use cellular data and not just Wi-Fi, which is a nice little feature. So the next update is actually inside of your actual lock screen settings and customization. So let's lock the phone itself. And now let's open up a new one. So if you press this plus sign, and if you want to add a wallpaper, so let's go into our photos. I have an album that has a bunch of wallpapers. These are actually by Byte Review. If you guys do want to check them out, I'll leave it down below. But in 17.0, you were able to pinch out and then Apple would add kind of like this whitish hue or a hue to kind of fill in and extend the actual wallpaper, even though the wallpaper wasn't that size. So if you zoom out, you can see it adds kind of like a white orangish hue, and it tries to do its best to match what that wallpaper is. And before with 17.0, you weren't actually able to remove. You would have to actually get out of this whole thing, delete it, and then come back to it. But now if you press on the three dots, you have the option to extend the wallpaper. So if I turn this off, it'll kind of zoom back in to the original piece of the wallpaper. And if I go into the three dots, there is that option to extend the wallpaper, but you just pinch to zoom, it adds that little white piece, and then the option does replay again. So that's something new that Apple added with 17.1, which is great to see. And then another feature that came out, or at least some additions, is if we go back into our settings and go into sound and haptics, and then go into your ringtone, we actually have a bunch of new ringtones that were first added and then removed. So with the beta program with 17.1, they added a bunch of new ringtones that you were able to play with and then go into your classics section, and then they actually removed a bunch of them. So let's see if Apple actually re-brings them back, which is good to see, and see if we're able to actually use new ringtones that are used throughout the system-wide aspects. So for text, for phone calls, for sending messages, for emails, and all that in between. So that's good to know. So it's good to know that we do have some new ringtones, which is great to see. Okay, so now the next small update that we saw is actually for the iPhone 14 lineup of phones. So you might have noticed if you have one of the newer iPhones, if you press the little flashlight button, you can actually get a nice little dynamic island animation showing you that the flashlight is on. And that was not showing up for the 14 and 14 Pro Max and those kind of phones. So now this will be showing up 17.1. And if you long press it and then tap on here, it will turn off the flashlight itself. So again, if I pull down, press on the flashlight, it'll pull up that nice little animation. You can tap it and turn it off from there as well. So that's something that's coming to all the 14 and 14 Pros on 17.1. So that's pretty much all the new features that we found. Again, Apple's making sure that thermally this phone is working as it should be. My phone hasn't really gotten hot since that 17.0.3 update, but I do want to actually go into battery life real quick and show you guys what I've been dealing with from a battery life perspective. But overall, it has been pretty good. So if we scroll down to battery, go to battery and charging, let it load up, go to the last 10 days, you can see that I'm getting about 9 hours and 9 minutes of screen on time, about 2 hours and 6 minutes of screen off time, with YouTube, X, and then USB-C accessories being my top 3 most used. So if we go in a day right here, I think this is Saturday or Sunday, we do get about 11 hours and 3 minutes of screen on time at about 125% charge. So if you do the math, subtract about 20% or 25%, I believe 20%, you do get around 9 hours. So on a day where I do about 100%, again, look, 11 hours and 34 minutes of screen on time on a little over 100% of charge. That means that I just kind of had it on a dongle, or I had it charging for a little bit to get a trickle charge. I'm trying to find a perfect 100. So on a day like this, I had 9 hours and 8 minutes of screen on time at 100% charge. So I pretty much used the entirety of that. And I believe I charged my wife's phone on this day as well to see what that was like. But that is what we get from a battery life perspective, and from, a snappiness and performance perspective, especially if you have the iPhone 15 phones, they're going to be very snappy and performance is going to be top notch. But that's going to do it for this video. Let's finish it up. So as you saw, 17.1 wasn't a huge game-changing feature set. We got a lot of those new features already that came with iOS 17.0 when it initially released, and then we did get those new thermal improvements with 17.0.3. So again, Apple just kind of tightened everything up, making sure that everything's working, while giving us some new quality of life improvements overall on the iOS 17.1 side. There was a big rumor about the journal application coming out with iOS 17, but now we're on 17.1, and we still do not have that. But now we're on 17.1, and we still do not have that journaling app. But that's pretty much going to do it for this video, everybody. If you made it to the end, leave a little dolphin in the comments down below so I know you made it to the end. And drop a comment down below if any of these features kind of make sense to you, or if these features are worth upgrading for. And let me know if there's a feature that still is missing that you wish iPhones would implement with iOS 17.2, for instance. But that's going to do it. Definitely stay subscribed. We got some more videos coming soon. If you want to watch some more videos on iOS, iPadOS, or macOS, click on one of these right here. And until next time, I'm Fernando. I'm out of here. Peace. Definitely check out the latest accessory video for the iPhone 15. It's a good one.